Good morning. Please introduce yourself to the court.
Good morning. My name is Julian Sebastian. I'm the lead forensic investigator here in Breckinridge County.
Mr. Sebastian, do you have any education in the field of forensic investigation?
I do, yes. I have a bachelor's degree in criminology from the University of North Carolina and a master's in forensic science from the John Jay College in New York City.
Do you have any further training in the field?
Yes, sir. After I received my master's, I had to attend the State Police Academy to learn about investigation from a police standpoint before I began my work. I graduated second in my class, and I was trained in all of the different facets of crime scene investigation that are required for my job.
And do you have any further experience in using all that training?
Certainly, yes. In the field, I've investigated well over 200 cases now, and in the classroom, I teach those same skills to current police academy students. I've been there for the past few years. Right now, I'm teaching an analysis of crime scene investigation in popular television.
Mr. Sebastian, can you tell the members of the jury how it is you're involved in today's case?
Sure. I was the lead investigator into an incident that took place in August of 2010 in Fairview.
Before we get into the details of your investigation, I'd like to ask you a bit more about your procedure. Did you have sufficient facts and data to form your conclusions?
Absolutely. I personally conducted an investigation, which meant that I collected all of the physical evidence myself, and that I performed all of the analyses personally. Again, that left me with more than enough information to form my conclusions.
Did you use reliable principles and methods?
I did. The principles I use are the same ones that I teach to police academy students every single year.
And did you apply these principles and methods reliably?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Sebastian, you mentioned that you had gotten a call in Fairview. Can you explain your initial observations when you arrived on the scene?
Sure. So, as soon as I received the call from dispatch, I went straight to the residence where the 911 call had come from. And the first room I entered in that residence was the home's living room. There were a number of witnesses and police officers on the scene. But in the center of that room, there was a large coffee table. And on one end of that coffee table was the body of the deceased, a young girl, with a large pool of blood surrounding her head. And on the opposite side, also on the floor, was a revolver-style handgun, which I collected as evidence.
Mr. Sebastian, do you know the name of that young girl?
Yes. She was later identified as Sydney Park. The incident in question took place in the home of Andrew and Lee Park.
How did you proceed with your investigation from there?
When I teach my students how to investigate their own crime scenes, I teach them the acronym PERP to help them remember the order to proceed. PERP stands for photographs, evidence, residue, and prints. So that was the order I used. And since this was an incident involving a firearm, I focused on the latter portion of that, the residue and the prints.
Now, Mr. Sebastian, for the members of the jury today, I'd just like to focus on one aspect of your PERP method, the R for residue. Can you explain a bit more about what you mean when you say residue?
Sure. So residue refers to gunshot residue. It's sometimes called GSR. Now, when a bullet is fired, the gunpowder that propels that bullet, some trace heavy metals and other materials, are expelled from the barrel of the gun in a short, wide cloud around it. So an investigator like myself can analyze evidence for the presence of that gunshot residue to determine who was near the gun when it was fired, where and how they were standing in a particular room, things of that nature.
Did you conduct tests for gunshot residue in your investigation?
I did, yes. I sampled or swabbed the hands of the different witnesses who were involved in the case, and I actually brought an illustration to show where I found the largest concentrations of that gunshot residue.
Your Honor, permission for the witness to step down and admit use of the illustration.
You can step down. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, permission to move about the well so I can see the demonstrative exhibit?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Sebastian, can you tell
Hold
the
on,
members...
Leah, wait till
Oh.
the,
Certainly, Your Honor.
Okay, proceed.
Mr. Sebastian, can you tell the members of the jury what it is we're looking at?
Sure. The silhouette you see in the markings there represent the samples that I took from Jesse Durant, one of the children involved in the incident. I took samples from Jesse's right hand, clothing, and left hand. Those are represented by the markings you see. And the numbers and markers below them are indicators of the concentrations of that gunshot residue that I found.
Mr. Sebastian, were you able to form any conclusions based on the pattern of gunshot residue that you collected?
I was, yes. This pattern that you see was in a gradient pattern across Jesse Durant's body, with a very heavy concentration on the right hand, indicating the firing of a gun, and lighter concentrations across the shirt and clothing and onto the left hand. Now, that evidence, the patterns and the concentrations, are consistent with Jesse Durant holding a gun while it was fired away from her body. That produces the gradient pattern that you see with her right hand outstretched, and the gunshot residue scattering across the rest of her body.
Thank you, Mr. Sebastian. No further questions. I just asked if opposing counsel would like me to leave out the illustration for cross-examination.
You can continue.